You decide to choose a solar system and you don't know where to go? Well, this video is for you. Hi, my name is Neil Shan and welcome to my channel. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe below and get the latest video. Firstly, congratulations on deciding to go solar and helping the environment. In this video, we're going to go through the tips of choosing a solar system. Just some things to note is that some things that I will talk about in here may be only applicable to Australia, but they might be relevant to your country as well. Firstly, let's have a look what a solar system is. Now, most people just think of solar panels and gives you an inverter and that is all you need. But this is how the solar system should look like. Firstly, on the left, you've got the solar panels and that goes into an inverter. Now, as you can see, it says DC, AC. AC is the power that comes out of the wall. So when the electricity comes from, the power comes from the solar panels, you'll see it's actually DC. So you need something in the middle there, which is called the inverter. That converts it into AC so we can actually use it in our home appliances. Now, most people only just have an inverter and it goes straight into the home appliances and it's grid connected. But as you can see here, we've got a thing called a hybrid inverter, which actually can go from the solar panel to a battery and or go back to the grid. And that's what you really want to be looking for, as basically a hybrid inverter, which actually has the ability to have a battery attached to it. Here's our first tip. First thing, know your kilowatt usage. There's no use putting a solar system in there if you don't know how much power you're using per day. Now, in most cases, your power company will be able to tell you how much power you are using per day. On our power bills, we actually have how much usage you actually have for that particular quarter, as well as how much you actually are using a day. And that gives you a relative guide of actually what you're going to be using. So definitely know how much kilowatts you are using a day. The next tip is off-grid. Now, what does off-grid mean? It means basically that you are generating all your electricity from your solar system. You're not actually connected to the grid. And most places you know normally is you're connected to a grid where you have your electricity comes from a power company and that's where it is. Off-grid, you can decide, are you actually going to just go straight there and generate your own electricity? As I said, in most places, the system is grid connected. This means that you can have the ability to get power from the grid when your solar panels are not generating enough. And in some places, you are generating more power than you're actually using, which is a good thing to have. And so the excess power has got to go somewhere. It just doesn't go out into nowhere. It's got to go somewhere, and normally gets fed back into the grid. And if that's the case, some companies will offer you feed-in tariffs. So when you are actually doing it and you're giving excess, you're actually getting compensated for the excess electricity. It may not be much, but then again, every little bit counts. The next thing we have is the biggest myth of solar panels. The solar panel is, if the power goes out, I still have power because I have solar panels. Now, if you are off-grid, the answer is definitely yes. All your power is coming from solar panels, and if the power goes out because you actually are not connected to anything, then you will definitely have power. Otherwise, the answer is no. Now, the reason why this is the case, so if you think about it, you are grid connected, you are generating solar, electricity is coming in, any excess one goes into the grid, which is what we've talked about. Now, in assuming that the grid goes down, you have a power outage, something happens there, you are generating electricity. You're trying to feed that into a grid that doesn't exist. So what actually happens then is that the power going, well, that can be very, very dangerous. In the fact that you're going extra power coming into the grid that doesn't exist, and therefore could cause a lot of problems. Therefore, what they do is they shut your solar panels down and everything gets turned off. So therefore, when you actually have solar panels and the power does go out, you actually don't have anything there, right? You actually have no power, just like everyone else. So that's why the answer is definitely no, you will not have any power. The next step we have is choosing your system size. Now, as the first tip we have, definitely know your kilowatt usage, because the size may depend. If you're a two-person place, you might not be using a little bit of power, so you need a small system. If it's you got a family of 6, for instance, you need a larger one, depending on what you're running. So that's why it's definitely good to know what your kilowatt usage is. And if you know what it is, you want to cover enough that covers all your needs. With nowadays, you can get massive solar systems so you can generate heaps of kilowatts per day, but make sure you can cover your needs. But one thing also that does also hamper it is the physical size to install the number of solar panels. You might only have a certain amount of roof space, because most people have seen solar panels on the roof, and you go, okay, well, I can only put so much on the roof because that's only the way where the solar panels can face. But you have to think about other places. You know, you could put it on a carport, on a garage, in your lawn, in the backyard. It all depends where, and that's why farms in particular have a dedicated area where they put the solar panels there. It may be less space they use, but at least it's power generation, and they can go off-grid then because they've got enough acreage to actually put the solar panels. So yeah, one of the definite things is actually where you're going to put the solar panels, and they also have to be obviously aligned to where the best part of the sun is, and that's what your installer can guide you on. The next thing is battery storage. Now off-grid definitely needs battery storage. The reason why is when you're generating excess electricity, it can go somewhere. If you are, for instance, the solar panels, you have a cloudy day, for instance, you don't have enough solar to generate, you need somewhere to get your power from. Some people have generators that kick in to make sure it works. A battery storage is a great place to actually store the excess electricity. Now, if you are grid connected, and then you also say, well, should I have battery storage? The answer is these are some of the benefits that you can get. So the one thing is excess electricity, instead of getting fed straight into the grid, will go into the battery first, then the grid. So that way then, when the battery is charged, you can actually draw from the battery first and then draw from the grid. So this kind of saves you on your power bill then, because if you're drawing from the grid all the time, right, you're paying for it. But for instance, at nighttime, if obviously there's no sun, so you're not generating any electricity, you're drawing from the grid and paying for that. But if it goes into a battery during the day, fills it all up, at nighttime, you can actually just draw from the battery, use all the electricity overnight, and then not pay anything. And the big benefit, the last one here, is the biggest with the myth that when the grid goes down, you have power, because that's the case. If the grid goes down, your battery storage is where you get all your power from. So next thing we're going over battery storage is the types of battery storage. Yes, there are just as much as solar panels out there. There's a number of battery storage types out there. And the most common one you've ever heard of is the lithium ion one. And that's one like the Tesla Powerwall, and a lot of them are coming there because they are size comparable as well as weight and cost is lithium. So that's why lithium is currently the market leader in that. Lead acid, if you think of car batteries, that's lead acid batteries. Those were the ones that we used before. Now, as you can imagine, lead acid cannot actually store as much as the lithium ion can. So you need a lot more batteries to actually store the same amount of power as lithium ion does. And in the past, farms and that would actually dedicate a whole warehouse of just batteries to store their power. Now, as you can imagine, that can also be a fire hazard in case one of the batteries did leak or caught a light. That would be a problem. So, and also it's a lot harder to charge a lead acid battery, as in it takes longer to charge a lead acid battery than the lithium ion one. So that's why lithium ion is definitely the go-to for now. The one that's coming up that I love is the flow battery. So think of that. That's a flow battery. It's basically a bunch of liquid, and think of it as if you ever did chemistry, where you have to do a copper sulfate solution, and what happens then is it's a liquid which generates electricity. That is what it's like. There's a different type of technology of liquid in there that would actually do it, that would actually store the charge. And that's why that's coming up now. And the big benefit of that one is it is liquid, and it's also environmental. So catching a light is very low, but at the moment size is the big thing because it is a bunch of liquid. But yeah, those are a good up and coming one. The next thing is battery storage, DOD. DOD is depth of discharge. So here is the definition of it. The depth of discharge is the percentage of the battery that has been discharged relative to the total battery capacity. Sounds very complicated. Example would be if you had an 8 kilowatt battery and your discharge was 75%, you can only use about 6 kilowatts out of that. That's how it works. Every type of battery has a different type of DOD. Lithium ion potentially can be 80% when it first is brand new, because it's very hard to use 100% of the battery charge when it comes out, depending on the type. One good example is flow batteries actually have 100% depth of charge, and that's why I like that one, whereas you'll see it in the spec sheet with actually the DOD, actually what the percentage is. So decide on that, because some of it could be really cheap. You could get a 10 kilowatt battery, but the DOD is only 50%, which means you can only use 50% of the charge that you store up in there. So you might be thinking you're getting a really good deal, but you're only getting a 5 kilowatt battery. And for instance, if you need 10 kilowatts, you need 2 batteries in that sense to actually make up for that usage. So definitely one of the things to look at is the DOD. And one thing to remember is DOD does reduce over time. So the best way to think about it is your phone. If you kept on charging it every day, all the time, the battery kind of wears out over time. And the same thing with this solar battery. It might start at 80% depth of discharge, and all of a sudden, over a number of years, it will down to like 50% or 25%. So just be aware of that. The more times you charge and discharge and things like that, it will reduce over time. It's normally mentioned in the specifications when you're choosing the battery. The next thing is the battery storage installation. Where do I put this battery? Most electricians will say close to the power board or close to the inverter. Now the reason being that is it's close. As soon as the power gets generated, it goes straight into the battery. No latency, no nothing, no loss of power, and that's also easy on wiring as well as installation costs and so forth. So that's one good thing to think of where to put it. One thing to know, a safety note, lithium batteries or lithium ion batteries, if they do catch a light, you can't just put them out with water. It doesn't work that way. Special equipment is required, and your fire department must know that you actually got lithium batteries attached to your house or on your property, so they can actually bring that special equipment with them to put out the fire. So I would recommend, if you have lithium batteries, which are the most common, as I said at this point, is try not to install them close to your home. I know it may be inconvenient, but the thing is that you do not want that to be a fire hazard. So here we go. My recommendation for a solar system. If your family of 4, as I said, you must know your daily kilowatt usage to see what it would be, but on average, I would say you need 10 kilowatt solar panels. And to match that up, 10 kilowatt flow battery. Now, if you can't get a flow battery, 10 kilowatts of battery is where to put it. I would love to have the flow battery there as well. So look around, flow batteries are becoming down in price. Lithium ion is as I said, the market leader. But there you go. 10 kilowatts of solar panels, 10 kilowatts of a solar battery would normally handle a family of 4. And there you have it. Those are my tips for choosing a solar system. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment below. Let me know if you have any questions regardless, or what sort of solar system you'll be putting in. And I'll hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.